Hello, everybody, and welcome to Crash Zoom. I'm Sammie Purcell, Associate Editor with Rough Draft Atlanta, and I'm here today, as always, with Aaron Strand, an independent filmmaker here in Atlanta. How you feeling after last night, Aaron? It's Monday when we're recording this.
Yes, it's Monday. It is the afternoon after the Oscars, and I am unhealthily projecting myself onto Sean Baker like every good independent filmmaker should be today. I have overly attached to everything that happened last night, and I am excited to get into it with you.
Yeah, what a good night overall. Like,
What
it's
a
so rare
magical
that you kind of
evening.
walk away feeling like that. It's really nice when it happens.
It was incredible. It was incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, where should we start?
I mean, I guess before we start talking about anything, I'd like to say if you listen today and like what you hear, please hit that subscribe button. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can watch us on YouTube at Crash Zoom Podcast. And also be sure to rate and review. That really helps. And if you're just joining us for the first time, I'll just explain a little bit what this podcast is actually about. What do we do here? So here on Crash Zoom, Aaron and I like to take a look at what's going on in the film industry from a bigger picture and then try to boil it down and figure out why it matters to the independent creator. And independent film just got a great spotlight last night. So let's dive into those Oscars. What'd you think? Some highs and lows. How'd you feel?
Well, okay. There's two things that I have two sort of very personal confessions almost about this Oscars experience. And I think I'll start with this. So I kind of said going into this on the show that I have never cared about the Oscars. It's never been my thing. I have always defaulted to the line of the Oscars isn't for me. It's not I'm too and essentially saying I'm too much of a film snob. I don't relate to the Oscars, that it's not geared towards me. And last night I had a come to Jesus moment with the Oscars. I really enjoyed it. I think it's partially a byproduct of this show, but it's also a byproduct of getting to an age where the default of this isn't for me. I mean, life is not supposed to be for you. I suddenly realized that the point of the Oscars is not to tailor make a cinema show for Aaron Strand. It's to spread the gospel of movies to the general public and give them something to care about. And if you care about movies and if you love this art form, you should be on board with that. The Oscars completely aligns with what I have kind of come to discover is the core mission of my life, which is about lowering the barrier of entry to this art form that means more to me than anything in the world. And that is, for all of its bullshit and all of the silliness that goes on in the Oscars, that is the core mission of what this is about. And it took me 35 years to realize that. And I am having a sort of it's kind of a humbling experience. I am suddenly feeling not at the Oscars is no longer I'm not at the center of my own Oscars narrative. I can now orbit the Oscars as yet just another person participating in this event, and it's frankly relieving.
I'm so happy for you to be on this train. I've been TiVoing the Oscars since I learned how to do that. So I've been there. It's exciting stuff. Awards are stupid, but it's so much fun. Come on. We all like movies. Aren't they great?
Some of us, I guess, are just born humble, Sammie. What can you say? Congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, it was not the Oscars can and do get it wrong, but it was a really exciting night. I mean, we both wanted Nora to win. I believe we both projected Best Picture, but I remember I'm sitting in this room, we're all having fun. I'm watching it, it gets to Best Original Screenplay. I'm like, oh, how exciting. Gets to Best Editing. I'm like, oh, how exciting.
Yeah.
And then the real turning point, and really the only surprise of the night, I think, was maybe you could say I'm Still Here winning for Best International, but I think the really only big surprise of the night was Mikey Madison. And once that happened, I was sort of like, oh, it's over. They got it.
Yeah.
It's done.
Sweet. To
Yeah.
bring out the brooms.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it was thrilling to watch it happen. We were texting like during the show, you know, it was like as soon as the best editing, it was like sweep, sweep, let's
Yep.
go.
It's happening.
Yeah, man. You know, it's so funny. Like again, this is so much about my experience of the Oscars as is so tied up with my own experience of aging right now. You know,
Mhm.
it's like I'm 35 years old. I don't really have heroes anymore, but to look at Sean Baker and for us to have Sean Baker and see this guy who really embodies all the principles that I believe in and aspire to see him be recognized this way, to see him be given this platform, like it was incredibly moving. By the end of the night, I was tearing up with joy. I was I mean, I joke about it, but I was living vicariously through him. And I think for anybody who is an independent filmmaker, and for anyone who isn't would understand this, but for anyone who isn't an independent filmmaker, you know, like my life and my career is mostly filled with, you know, frustration, hopelessness, despair, deep sense of like
Wow.
guilt for having like chosen this life. Hey, listen, this is just honest.
Mhm.
And then also like a weird sense of shame that I'm like even feeling these feelings because I'm like taking it all too seriously because it's like it's just movies. Like who gives a shit? So what I mean to say is that hope is at a real premium when you participate in this art form. And so to see the Honora team standing on stage with the Best Picture Oscar, and if and to say to indie filmmakers, like if you're an independent filmmaker, keep making movies. We need you, and we're the proof. I mean, like that meant a lot to me. I have no other
Yeah.
way to say it.
Yeah, it was so great. He gave so many great speeches. You could tell he'd like kind of prepped. Like he was like, all right, like, you know, we got to keep ramping up like the stakes as we get to the big dogs, which is such a nice thing. I feel like I remember a few years ago when, you know, Bong kept winning for Parasite. That was like funny and it didn't exciting in a different way because I don't think he really expected it all that much. So he like just kept kind of spitballing like these crazy speeches and popping off things like calling the Oscars a local ceremony, which is very funny. And then like, you know, getting to the big thing and it's still really exciting. But Sean Baker definitely felt like a little more like, all right, here we go. We're going to ramp up like the speeches as we go along. I am prepared should this happen. And it did.
Yeah.
Did you have like a favorite speech, a least favorite speech, a favorite Conan joke, a least favorite Conan joke?
Well, I will say I missed the entire first hour of the ceremony because Hulu
Hmm.
was not working for me. So I was like,
Yeah.
I was a
I'm
victim of the
sorry.
Hulu
We didn't,
crash.
yeah, we didn't have that problem. Like really at
Uh,
all. I don't know what happened. Yeah.
It didn't work for me the entire night. I had to use my
Mm-hmm.
in-laws dish login to watch it on abc.com.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, I
Wow.
mean, it was just like crazy. I'm trying to troubleshoot this. It was very frustrating. And I
Yeah.
think that Hulu, for, you know, this being the first Oscars that was streamed, and, you know, I heard a lot of predictions that like, oh, the viewership is going to be down, but I kind of thought that the Hulu thing was going to boost the numbers, like
Yeah,
surprisingly.
that was kind of the goal, I think, of streaming it in the
Yeah.
first place. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So then for Hulu to have this like massive outage that just like totally screwed it, I mean, I think it was just terrible. So you know, another like transition to streaming faux pas here. Um,
Mhm.
so I missed all of the opening monologue. I missed a lot of the best Conan jokes. I had to watch them as clips the next day.
Mhm.
Um, I think, I mean, Sean Baker's like best director speech was by far
Mhm.
my favorite. It was the most
Mhm.
well rehearsed. For him to be standing there with Quentin Tarantino in the background, um, listening, and to see the two of them, like, you know, who we know sort of share a mind around like protecting the theatrical experience, was pretty powerful. So I loved that. What
Yeah.
about you?
I had a couple all of Sean Baker's were great. I thought the kind of most emotional, it was weirdly like a very lacking political night, I thought, in terms of like what was said in speeches, and the one that I thought kind of like did not do that was the No Other Land guys. I thought they did a
Yeah,
really great job. They were amazing.
amazing.
And then I this just popped into my head. I think it was the composer for The Brutalist who was
Yeah,
so nervous, and it was like the sweetest, cutest thing I ever seen. And I
yeah,
think they started playing him, like we all stopped and watched, and we were like, "Oh!" And then I think they started playing him off, and everyone went, "No, like,
yeah,
stop!"
yeah.
Like.
Totally.
I
Yeah.
don't think they should play anyone off. I'm so against it. I'm like, especially like lower, like people who like, you know, crew people or like costumes or like whatever. Like these people, let them have their moment. Come on.
Ooh, 1000% disagree.
Oh,
I
come
no,
on.
no, no.
Have a heart.
No, 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 no. This is a show. This is a television product. We have got to keep it moving. In fact,
Ugh,
I think a lot of these awards could be done on a pre-show dinner. I think that this whole
no,
thing
that's
needs
so
tightening
rude.
up. It's not
Ugh.
rude. No, no, no. I'm actually like now that I am an Oscars convert, now I've got ideas of what needs to be done to improve the show. We need to tighten this up. I also think that there needs to be expanded categories. I mean, a lot of other people talk about this. Like, I do think there needs to be like an action. Um, like thriller category. There's got to be some sort of like big budget recognition because it's a problem that the Oscars does not reflect like the greater cinema landscape. It does.
Yeah, but they've tried that and it gets like overrun by like Johnny Depp stand like it I just don't think that's a good idea.
Well, they've tried it
Didn't
at
they
the
try
Golden
that?
Globes. No,
I think
they
they
did.
no, they did it. I'm almost positive they tried it at the Oscars at one point.
No,
I'm
no
gonna look that up while you
way.
talk. I'm gonna look that up while you talk.
I'm pretty certain it's just the Golden
It was
Globes.
just the Golden Globes. Well,
Yeah.
and I just like this is my thing about the like I've always thought like because I think where they've gone wrong in the past like a few years is trying to make it like more palatable to like the general viewer. Like they did do a thing a few years ago. I know this for sure. I think I'm wrong about the. I think you're right. It was the Golden Globes or the other one, but they did a few years ago where they like they didn't show like some of the like lower categories, some of the below the line categories, I should say. They did not televise them on TV, and I thought that was bullshit. Like I don't think you should like make it more palatable to people who like don't care about that kind of stuff. Like I think you should like really gear it at people what I think you should do and what I actually think would make more people care about the below the line stuff. And I think they tried to implement some of this like in a few interesting ways this year is like show us what show us what editing is. Like do make the clip so it like shows people what an editor does. Like I think they did that a little bit with costumes. Like I really liked having the actors in the different movies come out to like talk about their costume designer. I thought that was a really good call. But I
Yeah.
say like go even further. Like if you're like, oh, people don't care about editing, like make them care or just like gear it towards the people who actually care about movies. Like they don't like try to make football palatable to people who don't care about football. Like, you know what I mean? I just like, why are you trying to like ratings is the answer. But like, I just, if I were in charge of the Oscars, it would be like 10 hours long. like,
Well,
you know, but,
I don't know. I mean,
and I
if
know
I were
that's not like a popular opinion, but I just like, I don't think they should not televise categories because people don't care or they're like below. Like, I just think that's kind of lame.
So I mean okay, I hear what you're saying. It's a nice take. First of all, football and sports coverage absolutely tailors their coverage to try to the casual fan, and
They're
it's
not
like
doing
it
a good
actually.
job because I don't watch. So,
Well, okay. Well, I mean the numbers don't lie, Sammy. Many more
but
people
also
do,
I would
and
argue that like my football fans like think Tom Brady's like bad at his job, and isn't that what he's trying to kind of do? like,
yeah, but football coverage is actually very smart about chumming the water with things that people hate and love to hate watch because it gets them talking. But the Oscars too often falls in a middle ground where it's neither compelling nor is it a disaster, and people don't want to talk about it. Now, to your point, I thought that the whole actors coming out and explaining why this matters. They did the same thing with the cinematography, which I thought was wonderful. I
mm-hmm.
thought was really cool and a great twist to the introduction, and really added something to it. And also, it helps that you have actors that everyone is
Yes,
familiar with, who
exactly.
also can communicate in a short, effective manner and not ramble on or mumble mouth their way through something. So
Mm-hmm.
that was fantastic. I mean, as long as we're cutting things, if I see a Margaret Qualley dance number again, I'm gonna freaking put a bullet in my brain. That was ridiculous. The whole Bond tribute, the like
The
Death
whole
of Bond
I don't think we
tribute
need to
was.
blame Margaret Qualley because she was really good, but I thought that
She
whole
was not.
sequence was very strange. She's
She
a
was
great dancer. Are you kidding me? Oh my
no,
god.
no. I would not call her a great dancer.
okay, all right.
Stop.
Okay,
Stop. Do
that's
we have
fine.
how much more praise does this Nepo baby need?
She's a good dancer. I don't know how I can argue this with you. Like, I thought the whole Bond thing was dumb because I kept being like, oh, besides Lisa from Blackpink, I was like, could you guys just like not get Adele? What's going on? but, like,
I know.
but hey,
Right? What was
Margaret
that?
Qualley's a good dancer. Let's leave that at that.
Okay, we're gonna agree to disagree there. Still, the death of Bond,
I saw
or
the
like
substance.
this Bond in memoriam.
I
Uh,
actually thought it was funny. I didn't think it was well executed because if you're gonna like take out the best original song, the best original song performances, which is like kind of fine because none of those songs are and they're usually not very good. I understand the impetus to be like, okay, well let's like put in songs that people do like. And like I thought the Wicked opening was good because they're both very talented. Let's do songs that people like and people know instead of like these kind of crappy songs that are it's a really messy category. They need to do something to fix it. But the thing about the Bond thing that I thought was kind of funny was to me it clearly read like a little bit of a fuck you to Amazon, only
oh,
because they
totally.
kept like bumping up the Barbara Broccoli, and also like there was a whole Conan bit about Jeff Bezos being in an Amazon bag getting stolen, like at the beginning of it and all that. Which like I like that in spirit. I'm just sort of like you needed to like make this a little bit better. You know, it just wasn't very good. Yeah, Margaret Qualley is a classically trained ballet dancer, so
I'm, I'm, okay. I mean, sure,
just telling
sure.
you.
I mean, there's okay. That's fine. Let's talk about something that we got wrong. And the second that I saw this permeating the groupthink of Instagram, I thought, oh no, we were terribly wrong, which is Best Actor. Um,
Yeah,
Timothy Chalamet's campaign did not deliver him an Oscar. And I think
no.
ultimately, having just watched The Brutalist with you and Cameron, Adrian Brody was amazing in that movie.
He's
And
amazing. Yeah. I think if I had to choose out of that 5, it would still be Coleman Domingo, but like he deserves the award. And I think Timmy's gonna be just fine. I think
yeah,
he's gonna be just
no
fine.
one's losing any sleep for Timothy Chalamet. What did you think of Adrian Brody's record longest speech of all time?
It was terrible. I was like, bro, that's the one thing I
Sammie, he
have.
is a classically trained speaker. He is a classically trained speaker. How could you say that? He's an
I'm just
award-winning
saying.
actor. He's been there
This is
before.
so he's been there before and he still does he's doing like it's one of his Instagram things. Like it's so unserious. Like he's the most unserious person and he's a
I
great
th-
actor.
really, you think I would describe it as he is so deeply serious, and it's so
And that's what makes it so unserious. Like it doesn't matter. Like,
it's
like
so listen, look, like I cringed and hated every second of his speech, like I think most people did. But I hold a soft spot because the very thing that makes him such a great actor, it's a compulsion inside of him and this inherent belief that once he starts talking that everyone must and should listen and that he's going to find something brilliant like eventually. That is the core of his talent. Unfortunately, he does not have a talent for his talent and it gets
right.
misplaced in all these like weird ways.
I would
And that
yeah.
thus gave us this rambling bizarre speech, which also started off with him throwing his gum at his wife, which was
That
my
was funny.
favorite
I
part.
thought that was funny. But yeah, we were me and Cameron were talking about this. We've been talking about it a lot recently that like Adrian Brody and Jeremy Strong have very similar energies to me, except I think the fundamental difference is I think Adrian Brody does not seem like a good hang and Jeremy Strong does, like in regular life. And I think that is like the fundamental difference between them and how like I take the earnestness, I guess. Does that make
Mm,
sense?
mm, Can't say that I would agree that either would be a good pang. I see it more that Jeremy Strong was bullied more effectively as a child, and Adrian
Oh.
Brody was perhaps not bullied enough. I think that Jeremy Strong was at some point abused to a point of keeping his mouth shut. But have you read the articles about Jeremy Strong and what he was like at Yale and like?
Yeah. But everyone was being this is the thing. And this is also part of my point and why I can't pinpoint what makes me feel kind of like icked out by Adrian Brody. Great actor, I have to say. Like, he's amazing. But
Incredible.
like when everyone was kind of freaking out over that like Jeremy Strong profile and being the Jeremy Strong stands on Twitter were the Kendall stands were like, this is so mean, like you're making it
Yeah.
seem like he's so annoying, like blah 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 blah. And I was like, I kind of love that he's annoying about this shit. I think that's amazing. We should have more actors like be this kind of annoyingly earnest about this stuff. But for some reason when Adrian Brody does it, it just bothers me. I don't know why. I can't
Yeah.
pinpoint it. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's Adrian Brody is more shameless about it,
Maybe.
which makes it but what's so weird is that most time when people like are shamelessly in pursuit of something, it makes them funny, and Adrian Brody is not funny.
No, so
Uh,
unfunny.
he
Like
is
I
deeply
just
unfunny.
and Jeremy Strong can be funny. It
Incredibly
happens.
funny,
Like
especially when
yeah.
he's like self-aware about his own
Yes.
foibles. I mean, like that whole
Yes.
commercial, the Super Bowl commercial with him was
It's very good.
hilarious.
And I feel like whenever he's been on all these roundtables with Kieran Culkin, who's just like, "What the f are you talking about, man?" And he like takes it with such a like a grand and a seemingly good humor, which is it's
Yeah.
great to see.
Yeah,
But
totally. His Oscar's coming. I firmly
oh
believe.
yeah, for
I
sure.
and I will fall in line with the Kindle stands, and he will be the number one boy.
He's the eldest boy. I am the eldest boy. Um, so out of my whole Oscars, I didn't actually do that good. Out of all of the categories, I got 15 correct out of 23, I believe, if my counting is right. So like, could be worse, could be better. I made some like personal picks, probably wasn't smart, but
Yeah, yeah.
mm-hmm.
Totally. I did not fill out a full worksheet. Look, like I'm still learning. I'm still a novice here.
Yeah,
Um, I all I know is that I went 50% on our
on
picks on
ours.
here on this show.
All right.
Um, and yeah, I think next time, I think it will also like the general trend is, you know what is also very interesting that I thought is that so Honora swept in the same
Mm-hmm.
way that uh, Parasite swept, everything everywhere swept. We're seeing this more, whereas I feel like in the past the Oscars was a little bit
Oppenheimer.
more. Oppenheimer swept
Mm-hmm.
was a little bit more like everyone gets their trophy, and it was more spread out. And um and I also think it's very interesting that there's a lot of talk. I think on Big Picture podcast they've been talking a lot about how like no only 2 or 3 Oscar winners after 2005 have grossed 100 million at the
Yeah,
box office,
yeah.
and in fact the
Mm-hmm.
numbers are going down. Anora is the lowest box office grossing film to ever win Best Picture. And while you could look at that and say, this is symptomatic of the Oscars is falling out of line with American tastes and all these other sort of things, I kind of see both these things as a little bit more in sort of paradoxical ways, but there's sort of this, I talk a lot about like the barbellification of the internet upon media, and how
Mm-hmm.
it's like the only way to survive is being a giant like mega conglomerate or mega piece of IP, or an incredibly small low overhead piece of IP. And I think that both these things are a little bit indicative of the same thing. On the one hand, you have this incredibly small $6 million movie winning Best Picture, but then also this trend of a single film sweeping awards is a little bit like the sort of like the conglomeratization of media, where a narrative just starts rolling and it becomes
Mm-hmm.
impossible to stop.
Yeah, I think it's like I wonder if the internet has something to do with it. Like we all just get I don't know. Like I feel like we all tend to just get in our little like mind idea opinion bubbles and like stay there and like I don't know, like something coalesces around Honora kind of online. Like inevitably backlash like comes for everything that is popular on the internet at some point or the other. But like I don't know, I'd be interested to see how if like the rise of the internet in any way can be like correlated to that sort of like sweeping mentality. But
Yeah, I mean but at the same time, like the intelligentsia groupthink was that Timothy Chalamet was gonna like sneak in and grab this Oscar, and that Demi
I do,
Moore was gonna
yeah.
win.
Well, the
Which
Demi
both,
Moore
both
one I think was more shocking. The Timothy Chalamet one, I think people were just kind of hoping on it. I think it was like a little bit more of like let's anoint a new young movie star,
yeah,
and it's a narrative thing again. Like that would be a fun narrative. Like he is a guy who's probably going to be around for quite some time. Like let's do it when he's young, see what happens.
Yeah.
So, and even on my part, I think I was like a little bit like wishful thinking, not in the sense that I think his performance is better than Adrian Brody's, just in the sense of like, wouldn't that be kind of exciting? Um, but yeah, he definitely would have given a better speech, I have to say.
And we could definitely agree on that.
Yes.
Would love to hear the theoretical Chalamet speech.
I'm sure we will one day. I'm looking forward to it. Maybe for this ping pong movie, who knows?
We'll see.
We'll see. All right, shall we move on?
Let's move on.
Let's move on to some Narnia adjacent drama, I should say. So this article that I'm going to kind of be pulling from is from Screenrant, but this news item was originally reported in Puck. So we all know about Greta Gerwig's upcoming Narnia movie and the big giant deal that she made with Netflix. So the deal is that the movie will be released in Thanksgiving in 2026 with a 2-week exclusivity deal with IMAX to play it on their screens. And then they'll hold the movie after those 2 weeks, Netflix will, and debut it around Christmas 2026. So it's going to have kind of a month-long gestation period after theatrical before it goes to streaming. That's a really big deal. Netflix doesn't do this a lot, as we've discussed before. They did it for Rian Johnson's Knives Out movie a few years ago, and that movie made a ton of money and probably would have made a ton more if it had stuck around in theaters, which is an argument we'll kind of get to. But after this Greta IMAX Netflix deal, reportedly, US theater chains and other film studios are pretty upset about the exclusivity deal with IMAX. So this is a quote from the Screenrant article. Quote, from the report, theaters and other film companies are angry the deal was made without other studios' input, given the streaming service is considered competition for theatrical releases, unquote. So Disney is a very angry party. They have some animated movie that's scheduled for around the same time that's not going to have IMAX screens. And that's sort of like what the big kind of push is. And theater chains like Regal and Cinemark are also basically saying, well, we won't screen Narnia at all, because they're pissed too, because it kind of takes away like their opportunity to put other movies on IMAX screens as well. So this is the part that I still maybe like a little bit like, what does this exactly mean? But IMAX CEO Rich Gelfond, I think that's how you pronounce that, claims to have a quote nuclear option, unquote, to make theaters play Narnia on IMAX screens. He also said, this is besides the point, but he said he thinks there are going to be 8 Narnia movies. Was he like, what? What? Like I was reading in an article and he said this and I'm like, was he like joking? Like, is it what's going? Does he just mean a lot? Like, did he say like 8? You know, but anyway, that's a whole other issue.
Imagine if Netflix and Narnia just cannibalizes 20 years of Greta Gerwig's prime by
I would
locking her up for 8 Narnia movies. That would be a crime against art.
I would cry. But there has been no real like talk about like what going nuclear would mean in this instance. Do you have any theories or like, I guess, general thoughts on this at first, but like, what does he mean?
I mean,
just like
it's
threatening?
I don't really have an original thought, but from what I've read, it seems to think that he has a cozier relationship with AMC in particular, and AMC controls the majority of IMAX screens. So his nuclear option is just saying, okay, Regal and what's the other one? Okay, Regal and Cinemark, like, screw you guys, like, I don't need you. This is going to now be an IMAX AMC exclusive. We're going to
just cut you guys out completely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but overall, I love this. The theater chains they have, after some brutal years coming out of the pandemic, not only are they finally finding a sense of leverage in that studios outside of Netflix have once again discovered that having wide theatrical releases leads to increased streaming profits on the back end, just like they did with home video. But they've also, I think, the organization around NATO, this is, of course, not the political organization. This is the North American Theater Organization, NATO, the best NATO. I like both NATOs, for the record. But but the theatrical NATO has been doing a lot better in terms of getting out their messaging, and now they are finding synergy with this allyship with auteurs and filmmakers who are fighting for theaters as well. So this whole fight and this whole sort of drawing a line in the sand and it getting leaked to the press very
Mm-hmm.
intentionally, and people standing up to Netflix, who, despite everything that they say and everything Bella Bajaria that came out of her mouth on her Puck interview, or her The Town interview, that she loves theaters. Who doesn't love theaters? We're not
Yeah.
trying to destroy theaters. Netflix is absolutely trying to destroy theaters. Like, they see
Mm-hmm.
them as an inefficient barrier to their content, and to their
Mm-hmm.
data control. So I love this. I
Yeah.
love that they're standing up and making noise, and saying, no, you're not gonna push us around.
Yeah, I do too. As much as I like was cautiously excited. I think it's cool that Greta Gerwig was able to like strong arm this deal, but at the same time, it's like Netflix is clearly not a studio that's very interested in theatrical, like you said. So I can totally see being all of these other studios and movie theaters who have like being pissed that like this is we're going to be shut out. We're not going to be able to make money on any other film during that time in IMAX because of a studio that doesn't value the theatrical experience. Like, yeah, I'd be pissed.
Yeah, go get them. Go get them. Call their
I
bluff.
know. I'm
Yeah.
interested to see like what will happen because this came out was this like a week ago, I think. At this point it was like really close to after we finished recording last time, and it's been sort of like Rich has not said another thing. Like it's been kind of like what's nuclear, what's going on behind the scenes back there. I'd be interested to be a fly on the wall.
Oh, yeah. I wonder
Hmm.
how AMC feels with all this, and what can the other NATO members, potentially leverage against AMC to say, like, oh, okay, you're gonna if that is the nuclear option, and if you're gonna side with the IMAX Netflixes of the world,
Uh-huh.
what else could potentially be done? I mean, the head of NATO, on his interview with Matt Bellany, all this is like coming back
All
to
Matt Bellany.
it's
Yeah.
all Matt Bellany talk on The Town. When his interview, he was talking about sort of like organized potential like pools of money, and sort of like promises of theaters about upgrading facilities and like expanding the sort of like entertainment options within the theater. And is there some sort of pool of money that they could potentially hold over AMC, like as a
Hmm.
leverage point? Who knows?
Well, that's an interesting point and I think a good segue into our next item because like is there a world where AMC can like leverage this too? So this next article is from Deadline. It's by Jill Goldsmith. And AMC CEO Adam Aaron has been kind of slamming the 17 and 30-day theatrical window that we've gotten ourselves into kind of post pandemic. We've talked about this recently, how the theatrical window for movies has gotten kind of shorter and shorter over the years, sometimes, around the pandemic, especially. And again, like, I understand what was happening then. People couldn't really leave their homes. Like, things were being released simultaneously on streaming and in theaters. Theatrical window just kind of got shot to hell. And Adam Aaron, who's the CEO of AMC, has basically been going around saying that's bad. We got to get it back to those bigger theatrical windows. So he has a quote in here where he says, as Hollywood experimented during and after COVID, quote, what it coalesced around is that old 74-day window became a 45-day window, and some movies have gone quicker to 30 days or 17 days. And he's basically just saying on this call, it was a call after AMC reported its fourth quarter numbers, that like yes, movies need to be in theaters longer. They make more money. So like it's interesting jumping off of that IMAX conversation. Like if Rich Gelfond's thing is his going nuclear thing is I have a good relationship with AMC, and Adam Aaron is out here like, well, I want to get back to like a 6 to whatever, a much bigger like theatrical window. Like what does that conversation sort of look like between them if AMC is the only theater that's like gonna play it? How can he leverage that? I don't know.
Yeah, it's so yeah. I mean, it's so hard to speculate what is happening here. All I know is that Adam Aaron is 100% right in this regard.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
and we also, you and me, we really need to take a victory lap here, because we were talking about the problems with these theatrical windows really sort of a few weeks before all of this news started breaking out and people started speaking out. So I want us to take our credit as takesmen, takes
Mm-hmm.
people out here throwing out the takes here. We have a year now of very clear evidence how much theatrical and theatrical spins help the industry as a whole. We also know that the biggest problem with streaming is an issue of supply and demand. When you create an infinite supply of your product, you inherently devalue it. And that is what streaming does. The
Mm-hmm.
going back to getting back to a 60-day theatrical window right now seems almost insurmountable. I mean, it feels like Wicked was in theaters forever before it went
Mm-hmm.
PVOD. It was only 44 days. I mean, it wasn't even
Yeah.
close to what the standard was just in 2019. I think it's going to, I love that these people are speaking out. You feel, and then you have people like Sean Baker speaking out at the Oscars. There needs to be an organized effort around
Mm-hmm.
this. They're going to face stiff resistance from Netflix.
Yeah.
Getting this all back to the Oscars, I would love to see the Oscars up their qualifying runs.
Yeah.
Uh, Bella Bajaria refers to the Netflix releases as bespoke qualifying runs. She can't even say the words theatrical window. It's all
Mm-hmm.
bespoke qualifying runs, which is just some bizarre
PR
internal.
BS. Yeah,
Oh,
for
I
sure.
think even
Like,
worse. It's interior Netflix lingo that they
oh, for
use to
sure.
to
But
put
it's that
lipstick
their
on
PR
their
people are
pig.
like, don't you dare say the word theater in an interview.
Yeah,
Or
exactly. They can't
theatrical.
even.
Yeah.
Yes, they can't even say the words of it, despite the fact that they own the Egyptian, which is just makes me so angry.
Yeah. Oh my God. It is so funny. It all comes back to Netflix. There's a great quote from Adam Aaron in here where he goes, there are streamers and then there are streamers. And he sort of talks about like Amazon and Apple, which I don't want to like laud them as amazing, like yay tech bros, whatever. But like, he's like, we'd had great conversations with them. He talks about F1, which is Joseph Kosinski's new Brad Pitt movie, is coming out this summer. And that's going to be like an awesome movie to see in a theater with the sound and the action and, et cetera, et
Yes.
cetera. He's the Top Gun guy. And he like he brings up that and he's like, we're having great conversations with them. Like they get it, et cetera, et cetera. And he's just like, Netflix. Wish they would. He's just like, it's very funny that, especially if AMC is the option, it just be, again, I just love to be in the room. Just like, let me hear what you guys are talking about. I want to know what's going on.
Yeah, the next 5 years will be very interesting because
Mm-hmm.
Netflix, has their stock price through the roof. Subscriber growth is continuing an upward trend, but primarily on sports and these sort of live entertainment gimmicks. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
I don't. The back catalog mitigates churn. I don't think it's being credited with subscriber growth at this point. They've very clearly shifted their strategy in terms of the sort of how they're growing their numbers through live event, through not movie stuff. It's just not movie
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Yeah.
So to see companies, particularly Disney, the number two in this arms race, really start to fight for theaters and really start to see the sort of vertical integration of the theatrical experience to the app experience to the parks experience, and really trying to I feel like Disney has an opportunity to kind of get back to their bread and butter here. I have no idea if it'll work. They've
Mm-hmm.
got their own whole Succession drama, which we'll get into a little bit later on the show, which will be a major determining factor of who's going to succeed Bob Iger over there. But it's interesting to see, and I'm just clearly on the side of the theaters here, and I just want to
Mm-hmm.
see them succeed.
As always, support your independent theaters and your AMC. I am an AMC Movie Stubs proud holder. It's actually a really great deal. I know everyone always says it, but if you go twice a month, it's worth it.
Yeah,
Great deal. Yeah.
yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
The AMC's walking distance from my house when I need to
Oh,
swing to a movie at like 10 o'clock at night.
it's
Uh,
perfect.
I hit up the AMC. Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
I used to live walking distance from a landmark in Boston. It was the best place I've ever lived. It was the greatest thing in the world. Well, speaking of that Disney succession, let's get into that. So the big news this week is that Kathleen Kennedy, who I guess if you are listening to this, you probably know who Kathleen Kennedy is, but huge producer of E.T., Jurassic Park, co-founded Amblin with Steve Spielberg, took over Lucasfilm in
Steve
2012.
Spielberg.
We're best friends, me and Steve. But the real problem is I just wrote down co-founded Amblin with Steve in my notes. But good old Steve. But handpicked by George Lucas in 2012 to take over Lucasfilm, which handles all the Star Wars stuff, Indiana Jones too, I believe. And she's stepping down. So now Disney
Or is
gets to
she?
choose. I think she'll step down. I kind of think she's 71. Like, I don't know. And I
Okay,
just, not to like jump into defending Kathleen Kennedy's decisions about Star Wars, but like she's gotten a lot of shit over the past 15 years. I would be tired, is what I'll say.
well, so absolutely, but just okay.
Mhm.
So the news that broke last week is that
Yeah.
once again Matthew Bellady on Puck broke the news that Kathleen Kennedy is stepping down. She is stepping away from Lucasfilm, which immediately 1,000,001 sexist YouTubers jumped on their microphones
Mm-hmm.
and celebrated this news,
Mm-hmm.
and did a little dance and made a bunch of terrible videos trashing Kathleen Kennedy for the upteenth time. She then comes back out on a Deadline article and says, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! No, I'm not. Like, I am seeing this
Hmm.
Mandalorian movie through to completion. I'm doing the there's some other Star Wars movie. I can't keep them all straight. Anyway, so she says, I'm doing the Mandalorian. I'm doing another movie. I'm not walking away anytime soon. Yeah, maybe in a couple of years I'll step away, but she came out and firmly said, "This is all ridiculous. This is speculation, and people are just celebrating my demise once again."
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting, like
Hmm.
how the spin that came out of on her side, out of her mouth.
Yeah. What do we know, like, where the sort of like rumor came from in the first place? I can't remember where
No,
it was in Puck, but
Bell,
like, no, I
no,
know,
Bell.
but what it does he say it in, like,
He
who did
says
he
that
hear it from?
he didn't divulge sources. He
Okay.
said,
Hmm.
"I've heard that
Okay.
this is happening. It's DefCon 5." And I mean, he already kind of did this though, like 2 years ago. So, uh, but he basically like tried to get ahead of the story, and she
Uh-huh.
very quickly tried to throw water
Said
on it.
no. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking, it's a little off topic, I guess, but like, again, not to be like she's made the best decisions about Star Wars ever, but like I sort of remember like when she was picked, again, like a bunch of sexist YouTubers being like, "Who even is Kathleen Kennedy?" And I'm like, "She produced E.T. Like she's not some like hick off the street. Like what are we doing? What are we talking about?"
I
But
think yeah.
yeah,
So I think that the everyone and their mama has been criticizing Kathleen Kennedy for 15 years. I have found a lot of it to be disgusting
yeah,
and unnecessary, frankly. Uh, I Kathleen Kennedy is caught within a web of corporate interests, and a series of dictates from Disney, who paid this astronomical price for the Star Wars IP. Um,
mm-hmm,
she has been criticized for a lot of things. So diminishing returns on the reboot trilogy, right? That each
mm-hmm,
movie made less than the previous one. Um, Too many announced and then canceled projects. And I think that sort of messaging and communication could absolutely be owned on
mm-hmm.
her watch as far as Lucasfilm goes. They love to criticize her for the bad TV shows like Obi-Wan
Yeah,
Kenobi, and then also the sort of like scatter shot of the movie making is like all of a sudden we have a Han Solo movie, and then all of a sudden we have this Rogue One movie, and now we haven't had a Star Wars movie in 5 years, even though once upon a time Bob Iger said we're going to do a Star Wars movie every year, and so it's felt
mm-hmm,
unfocused and scattershot. But she's also living in it's unfortunate because Lucasfilm was purchased and developed in the Disney universe in the mold of Kevin Feige and Marvel, but they didn't really get
mm-hmm.
the Lucasfilm ball rolling until the Marvel stuff had already like reached its climax with in the 2018-2019
Yeah,
Avengers
they're
Endgame,
like a little
you
late.
know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so eh, and then of course the worst of all is that these people who I think are really who are sexist in their criticism of Kathleen Kennedy. I can't tell you how many, just like in the perusal of the first YouTube videos that pop up with her name, how much, this, like, the B word, like all these sort of sexist
Yeah.
epithets are thrown at her. But then also all this, like, Star Wars going woke, right? That people love to throw at Star Wars, and they blame her for it in particular, which
Mm-hmm.
uh the thing that is the misplaced criticism that
Mm-hmm.
everyone should truly be angry about is that all of this entertainment is pandering to its audience. uh like, but it's not about that's it's not a diversity issue per se, although you can certainly pander with diversity. It's the fact that the stories are pandering, like they're not offering really unique or interesting takes,
Well,
expanding
and
the core universe.
the one time they did, the entire fandom blew up and they went back to what they'd always been doing. Like,
Which I don't really follow it. Which one is that?
Oh, so of the new trilogy, I believe the first and last one are directed by J.J. Abrams, I believe, and then the middle one is Rian Johnson, and
Right.
the Last Jedi is the middle one. I quite like that movie because I think it is clearly made by someone who loves Star Wars and had an interesting idea of how to like actually maybe turn it on its head. I'm also not precious about Star Wars because I didn't watch it as a kid. I watched them all later in life. So like I was like, "Oh, this is actually interesting. What would Luke Skywalker really be like, 40 years after all this happened, et cetera, et cetera." But a lot of die-hard fanboys hated that movie. Like, just like, Luke Skywalker would never be like this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then they went back to J.J. Abrams for the last one, which I think is absolutely terrible. So like they tried to like do something interesting, and the entire fan base, I won't generalize, but a lot of the fan base had like a huge meltdown over it.
Yeah, I mean, the fan base is
Yeah.
totally toxic and ridiculous. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
still think that I mean, I haven't seen those movies
Mm-hmm.
because I went and saw, like so many people did. I mean, it was like the highest grossing American domestic film of all time.
Mm-hmm.
The first reboot of this trilogy, whatever,
The
The Last
Force
Jedi.
Awakens. Yeah.
Force Awakens, yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I went that, and I really think that the original sin, which I do not lay at the feet of Kathleen Kennedy, because this is Disney's bread and butter at this point, is that
Mm-hmm.
it's going to the theater, you're being served a reheated burrito. Nobody wants to eat a burrito that has come out of the microwave. It is disgusting. The sour cream does not survive the microwaving process, and that's what they are serving us with
Mm-hmm.
with the Force Awakens, and really with all these things. And I think that is really like the cardinal sin. But again, I think that that's a corporate mandate. That is
Yeah.
the corporate interest, like making sure they get a return on investment. And at the end of the day, Kathleen Kennedy has overseen $7 billion in revenue, despite all of these missteps. So I don't know, man. I do not
Mm-hmm.
envy her.
No.
But I certainly think that a large degree, and certainly the tone of the criticism, has been disgusting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this the Hollywood Reporter is like already casting her replacement, which is
Yep.
wild. But have you looked at like any of these sort of like names that have been tossed around? Although there's an
Yeah.
interesting line in this Hollywood Reporter article where they essentially say one of the reasons she hadn't stepped down earlier, and I think this is all before her kind of comments about it, was that there just like wasn't a suitable. They didn't think there was a suitable replacement. Like they just didn't think there was anyone who could like take over the huge juggernaut that it is. Um, yeah, one person who has had many interactions with Lucasfilm leadership. God, these sources are so vague.
I know. So
Yeah.
so we know that a few of the names. We've got Jon Favreau,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mr. Mandalorian, that a lot of people kind of like throw in there. Who has a long track
Monica's
record. I mean,
boyfriend from Friends.
sure, Mr. Swingers, back in the early
Yeah.
'90s. We've got this the guy, Star Wars Attack of the Clone Wars,
The Clone
whatever. What's
Wars
his
guy,
name?
Dave
Yeah,
Filoni.
Dave
Mm-hmm.
Filoni. Yeah, those are the two names that I see most frequently. But I've also seen in many of these articles breaking down the potential candidates, they talk, and again, this is where like I absolve Kathleen Kennedy of a lot of the responsibility, is that the least enviable thing about Kathleen Kennedy's job is that it's total C-suite managerial
Mm-hmm.
budget planning and release planning and just a lot of paperwork kind of bullshit. You don't get to be creative in this role is
No.
the criticism that I've heard, which means
Yeah.
that a lot of these artists, even a Jon Favreau, is going to look at this job and think like, I don't want to do that. Are you kidding me? Like just pushing papers and
Mm-hmm.
then getting criticized for every misstep?
Yeah, one of these articles brought up J.J. Abrams, who, like, for as much as I don't think that last movie is very good, I think he's been pretty, or at least, like, the vibe around his relationship when he was working on that movie is, like, it was not very good. And some person was like, I don't think he would ever, like, want to get close to that again. Like, there's no way, you know? Like, so I think you're right. Like, a lot of the people in the running would be like, no, thank you. I have seen Kevin Feige's name tossed around, which I'm like, that's so much to take on, my guy. Like, what are we doing?
No way. No way. That's
That's
there.
crazy.
There's no way you would. I mean, I think. I would imagine he's probably thinking about his escape plan from the
Hmm.
MCU.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but to jump from MCU to Star Wars
No.
is like jumping from a den of snakes into a
I was
den of
like, you
into a
could make your
shark
life
pit.
so much easier. Just do something else.
Yeah, yeah. Just take a few years off. Just enjoy
Just
your
like, take a
money.
break.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. God, managing. I mean, the sprawling nature of big IP and all of the too many cooks problems and all the sort of
Mm-hmm.
managerial corporate interest problems that is just so deeply inartistic. Um,
Yeah.
is and the way that Americans manage it. Because I was thinking, like at some point you really need a leader that is strong enough or at least hidden enough behind the corporation that you can get back to entrusting artists to make bold decisions. I think that potentially what Toho is doing with Godzilla these
Hmm.
days, it potentially shows the way of like how to breathe fresh life into these legacy IP franchises. I mean, what Toho has done between Shin Godzilla and Godzilla minus one, and they've done it by empowering really, really forward thinking, like cutting edge artists, um, and just and freeing themselves of the burden of the lore. Which really means
Mm-hmm.
that they need to stop paying so much attention to fan service and get back to the core belief that what fans really want is interesting, innovative stories. Um, and and like you could probably argue again, I haven't seen the Rian Johnson Star Wars, but probably like you serve people a reheated burrito, with the episode one of a trilogy, which the fan base has
Mm-hmm.
already been geared towards, thinking about a trilogy. And then for the second one, you're gonna throw some cilantro on top of it,
Some
and
paprika.
yeah, some paprika. Like it's just it just doesn't feel right. Not to
Mm-hmm.
mention, sorry, all of this. The biggest point about all of this that just popped into my head, which is the most low hanging fruit, is like people blame Kathleen Kennedy for ruining Star Wars. Did they watch the prequel trilogies? I mean, George Lucas did so
He
much
didn't need any
damage,
help. He
dude.
he he could have done it all by himself, which is honestly impressive.
Yeah, I mean, just
Yeah.
he gets to and of course, look, he's the creator, so he gets to walk away into the sunset, as like this untouchable thing. But the Star Wars IP was already, you know, damaged property
Hmm.
when Disney bought it.
Yeah, I do. It's funny again, like watching Star Wars as like a person without like a really deep like childhood connection to it, because I would have been like the correct age. A lot of my friends who love it are really attached to those prequels because they were little kids, and that's like the Star Wars that they had before anything else, and it makes a lot of sense. But watching kind of the whole thing as an adult, it's funny because I think besides like Empire Strikes Back and the first one, like, classic episode 4, I should say, first 4, numbers are confusing. But my like two of my more like up there Star Wars movies are some of the newer ones. The Rian Johnson one, mostly because I think it's like actually trying to do something very interesting. And I quite liked Rogue One. I thought it was good, you know? And then like
Isn't
it
that
kind
isn't
of
that with isn't that with your persona non grata Felicity Jones?
it is, but like Diego Luna's there too, so it's fine.
For the record,
Yeah.
Sammie and I were at the 70 millimeter screening of The Brutalist here in town, and she confessed in the middle that she does not like Felicity Jones, like
I
as
am
an
sure
artist.
as an artist, I'm sure she's a lovely person.
Yeah, yeah,
She
yeah, yeah.
seems
Whatever.
quite nice. I have never been in love with one of her performances.
Except for Rogue One, apparently.
I'm not. No, she's fine. She's non-objectionable. I think the movie around it's good.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's cool. Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't watch any of
So
this
like,
stuff,
I
man.
guess like kudos to her for that. Then I'm coming at it with a pretty objective, non-loving my childhood heart stance. I feel, but
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I loved the Star Wars movies as a like the original ones as a kid.
yeah,
I was totally wrapped up into the world. But and I remember the episode 1 like 1999 build up. And I remember as a little kid going to the theater and just thinking, yeah, this is not like this ain't it. this,
You're like, what?
this ain't it. And yeah, I think what I fell out of love because the story the storytelling wasn't there.
Yeah,
I'll still watch the original trilogy with a lot of love, but until they really show that they're doing something interesting like with the world, I have no interest for it personally.
yeah, that's fair. All right. Do we want to move on to this last, very non-related to any of the rest of this news item that we've got here?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. So this is an article, or originally this article I think was in TechCrunch. So Spotify has announced that it's going to partner with Elevenlabs to expand its library of AI narrated audiobooks. So Elevenlabs sort of develops AI voice technology, and it's among, I believe, one of the bigger AI kind of audio providers. So Spotify already has AI recorded audiobooks. Like, this is not the first time that that's going to be on the platform. But because Elevenlabs is so big, there's probably going to be like a big boost in AI narrated audiobooks on the platform. This quote in this Spotify gave a statement about this, and I just want to read it because I think it's so BS. But anyway, quote, Spotify says it firmly believes in the power of human narration. And then, like, wait, hold on. I messed up. All right. My notes are confusing. So I wanted to point to sort of what Spotify kind of responded in response to this partnership, because understandably, people were a little perturbed. But so Spotify says it firmly, quote, firmly believes in the power of human narration, unquote. But also believes that digital voices, AI voices, could make the audiobook production more cost effective for smaller authors and make it easier to create audiobooks of older backlist titles that would otherwise be ignored. So that's sort of their reasoning for it, is like a cost effectiveness thing.
Yeah.
They're also
Wow, how
saying that,
heroic of them.
I know, right? Oh my God, you guys really care about the little guy.
Yeah, really care about these backlogged books, these under listened to pieces of fiction genius.
Sure. They also, I guess for transparency's sake, have said that like all AI narrated titles will be like clearly identified in the book descriptions. So it'll say it's by a digital voice. So that, I guess, does leave it up to the person listening. But it's just that whole thing is just so not unserious. Disingenuous. That's the word I'm looking for. I've said unserious too many times on this podcast. Disingenuous. There we go.
It's very disingenuous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the way that Elevenlabs and really a lot of these AI voice companies kind of they brand their voices with names. They'll be like, "This is read by Barry," and I have a feeling that pretty soon Spotify will just have in the description like, "This is voiced by Barry," and you have to like
Yeah.
read a little deeper to even understand what Barry is.
Ooh, yes. What Barry is. Also,
Yeah.
like, I don't know how many audiobooks you listen to, but like when you get a good narrator, like it really helps. Like it just like changes the whole vibe. Like I this just I don't know. I think this kind of sucks.
So it does suck. I
Yeah.
mean, I wanted to bring this onto the show, and
Yeah.
I thought
It's
this really
not
jumped
technically
out to
movie
me.
related, but yeah.
It's not, but it is
Yeah.
because first of all, if you want to know what's going to happen to the movie industry, look what's happening to the audio industry first. They are the leading edge of everything that happens in this in film. And there are trickle down effects of what happens in the audio only medium that eventually make their way to film firsthand. back in my 2025 prediction, in our prediction episode, I said
Mm-hmm.
that the news about AI this year would be there wouldn't be a lot of it. But that's because AI was beginning to seep into all the cracks under the surface, and it would be setting up for 26, 27, 28, when all of a sudden, like, AI will suddenly burst onto the scene in a far more acceptable way. And it's little things like this that that, in my opinion, are fulfilling this prediction. Really patting myself on the back here. But so look, AI. Thank you. AI audiobooks are not a new thing. Like they're already
Mm-mm.
on Google Play. They're already on a lot of other platforms. But the technology on the whole is like pretty stilted, and having companies that have the sort of capital investment to really improve the AI, and then and a team up between a big company like Spotify certainly lays the ground for the kind of improvements where AI voiceover is going to become more indecipherable from human voice. Because right now, everything that I read on Reddit is that it's like pretty cringy, like the
Yeah.
mispronunciation of words, and it makes a lot of mistakes, but that will get better. That absolutely will get better. So this is uh this is the kind of slow acceptance to AI and the way it will start to trickle in and sort of be unnoticed by the general public that will find its way to film. So that's the first big issue that I see with it. The second is that I can't tell you how many actors that I've known over the years that have supported themselves by
Yeah.
being audiobook narrators. It is one of the best go-to jobs for actors between gigs, which is like, remember, that's 90% of the life of an actor is between gigs. Because it keeps you acting, it keeps your instrument warm, you get to work with reading text, you can do it on your own schedule. And so people have sustained their entire adult lives through audiobooks. This partnership and the slow acceptance of AI narration into the world of audiobooks is going to drastically affect the pool of actors and their ability to survive in the modern American society, which is already hard enough as it is. So this is a huge threat to sort of the working class artist and their ability to support themselves. And that's the thing that I think really scares me the most.
Yeah. And like how soon before it just like seeps over to animated movies, like, you know, like if you want to like kind of cut costs here, that's a big cost
Exactly.
measure. Yeah.
That's a great point. And think about the
Mm-hmm.
incentive structure there. Agents, like, the CAAs and the WMEs of the world will start to sniff around the money because already, like, animated films oftentimes allocate large budgets, just like any movie does, to get big name actors into their star power. Well, what if you can push the animated film company to set the budget for actors on the project, but your big clients can command almost 95% of the actor budget, and you can
Mm-hmm.
decrease the percentage left to everybody else because you're leaving it to AI. And because it's minor parts, no one will notice, and everyone will just be sort of paying attention to the glitzy names. They won't be paying attention to the fact that all the five and under characters, all the minor characters will all be AI voices. And from the industry perspective, that's kind of a win-win because, like, our big name clients get paid, like they get their movie out there, and the producers on the movie, they get the big name actor for their marketing, and they're able to get the movie across the finish line for a for a moderate budget point.
Yeah.
So this incentive structure is really dangerous here, and if it's happening underneath the surface, behind the visual representation of the artist,
Mm-hmm.
like through audio, through voice, through audiobooks, or like you said, through animated films, it's a real slippery slope.
Yeah. No, this whole thing just sucks. And like, I know I just said this, and I know that you said that obviously this stuff will get better and it'll be harder to sort of differentiate between an AI narrated audiobook and just a regular person. But like one of I don't know, some of the greatest like audiobooks that I've listened to are usually like narrated by multiple people. Like there's a really great the audio edition of Daisy Jones and the Six, which is like kind of like a fake Fleetwood Mac. Like it's all done in kind of interview format, et cetera, et
Yeah,
cetera. But they got like a bunch of really great actors to read it, and it's like a wonderful listening experience. Like it's like Judy Greer, I think Benjamin Bratt is also one of them. Like it's just like a wonderful, it feels so immersive because you have people like actually acting the lines, and like it would be just a shame to kind of miss out on things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. This is definitely something to pay attention to. These are the type of very under the radar stories that I think like again to pat our show on the back, that like this show was created to highlight, like these are the types of things that are affecting independent artists that are not getting talked about on some of the more mainstream platforms. But these are the things that will have big time ramifications for working artists and for the actual entertainment that we enjoy. Because yes, I agree with you, much will be lost, and once it's gone, it's really hard to get it back.
Yeah. No, wow. What a sad note to end things on. That's okay. We had some highs and lows this episode, I think. Had some exciting
We did.
things.
Sean Baker won the Oscar.
Sean Baker won the Oscar.
It is not a sad day in the land of
excited?
movies. Sean Baker swept the Oscars. Freaking Sean Baker swept the Oscars. Yes.
We're so excited.
Live it up, Willie.
All right, that was a great episode. Do you have anything you have some stuff, I think, coming up you want to plug, no?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I have much to plug. Well, by the time this episode comes out, I had just introduced Akira Kurosawa's Stray Dog at the Terror Theater. It was wonderful. It was amazing. You missed out, but you can go to my Instagram at Behind the Slate Pod, and I'll be posting videos of my talk from before that film, which was super fun. Oh my God, the party was wild. You missed it. But at the end of the month, March 27th, Behind the Slate Presents, we'll be doing our live show at the Plaza Theater here in Atlanta, Georgia. We have a super rare 35 millimeter print of Walter Hill's The Warriors, which we're going to play, which I am so excited about. The Warriors is such a fun movie. It's such a fun, crazy, cartoonish vision of late 70s New York. I can't wait to talk all about it. If you come dressed with a gang of 3 or more people, you will get free prizes and a free large thing of popcorn for you and your gang to split. But you have to come dressed as a gang. So get your gang together. Come out to play, yay! On March 27th at the Plaza Theater. It's gonna be awesome.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Wow. I don't know if I have anything coming up super exciting that I can think about. Just, subscribe to Scene. That's where all my thoughts are, everything that's going on in my mind, in my world. But other than that, I don't think I have anything coming up specifically.
Yeah. Subscribe to
that Warriors
newsletter. Yeah. Oh, please come on out. It's gonna be a good time. Guys, thank you so much for listening. The subscriber numbers here have been going up. The downloads have been going up. We see y'all. We appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. Please, if you enjoy this show, tell a friend. Let them know about what we got going on over here at Crash Zoom. Wherever you listen to this show, like, subscribe, rate, review, hit us with the 5 stars, leave a little note. It really, really helps us out. You can always follow us at Crash Zoom Pod on Instagram. I'm sorry, at Crash Zoom Podcast on Instagram, at Crash Zoom Podcast on TikTok. You can email us, crashzoompod@gmail.com. That's crashzoompod@gmail.com. Tell us, what did you think of the Oscars? Are you living vicariously through Sean Baker? I hope you are. This has been wonderful, Sammie. Until next week, I will talk to you.
Until next week.
Bye.